Hey guys, thanks for joining me for an episode of Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at Hot Shots. This is a brand new game from Fireside Games. It is a 1 to 4 player fully cooperative game, so all the players are working together to defeat the board, and it takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour to play. So in the game itself, each player is going to be playing a member of the Hot Shots team, and each one of the players is going to have their own special ability that they're going to be able to help the team with. In the game, the players are going to be moving around the board to try to put out all the fires that are on the board. If 8 or more tiles are scorched before the players can do this, then the players will lose. And if the players are able to put out all the fires before 8 or more tiles are scorched, then they will win the game. So my opinions of this game so far are very good. Me and my wife found this one at Origins this year and absolutely fell in love with it. It is a great game. It is an awesome family game. It is easy to teach. All the rules are covered very well in the rule book. It was written very well, and there's not a lot of situations that come up that aren't really clarified in the rule book, so they did an excellent job with that. On top of that, my wife was really impressed with all the backstory and all the details that they put into this game. As she used to fight and do controlled burns and do brush fires and stuff like that, she was really excited to see all the different terminology and things that they used was correct. So she was really excited about that, and it was really cool to see all the details that they put into this game in reference to those things. Obviously, it's a game, so it's not going to give you quite that experience of being out there and fighting fires, but it's a fun way to bring it up and to teach people about what this job is all about. And they do an excellent job of having the push your luck element in there with the dice, as well as the teamwork element. This is a really nice cooperative game, excellent for families or for game nights as a filler game, as it is fairly quick at 45 minutes. You can easily do that once you have the rules down. So I would highly recommend checking this one out if you guys are into any of those types of elements. This is a great game that they did an excellent job with, and so let's go ahead and head to the table, and I'll teach you guys how to play. The first component I'm going to go over are the dice. So these are the firefighting dice, and each of these dice is a 6-sided dice that will have one of each of these symbols on it, which is the Pulaski, the shovel, the hose, chainsaw, McCloud, and the firefighter. And you're going to use these in various combinations to help fight fires on each of the tiles, which we're going to cover a little bit later. There are 4 different characters included in the game, and at the start of the game, each player will choose one of these to play as, which are the Sawyer, the crew boss, the swamper, and the spotter. Each of these crew members is going to have a special ability that they can use during their turn. Each of them is also going to have a tile that's associated with their character. And if that tile ever becomes scorched, then they're going to flip their card over and they will not be able to use their special ability anymore. Finally, at the bottom of the card, it's also going to give you a helpful guide for the turn order, or for your playing order. And then finally, the dice results. So the more matching symbols that you have on your tile that you roll, the better the results are going to be. And we're going to cover this a little bit later as well. Setting up your fired card deck is very easy. The first thing you're going to do is separate the 6 different wind directional cards from the deck. You can set these off to the side. And then you're going to go ahead and split the deck as evenly as you can into 2 different piles. Okay. From there, you're going to take each of those piles and place 3 of the directional cards in there somewhere. Once you're done doing that, you're going to go ahead and mix up all those cards. And do the same thing with the second half. And once you're done doing all of that, then you're going to take 1 half and stack it on the second half. Now you have a complete fire deck and you're ready to start. Let's take a look at a breakdown of the different icons on a tile. So the top of some of the tiles are going to be special effect icons. These icons will vary. So for example, with the power line tile, you cannot use helicopters or planes on that tile. With the lake tile, you cannot move onto or through that tile, and that tile will never catch on fire or have flame tokens added to it. On the side of each of the tiles, except for the lake tile, you're going to find a scorch limit symbol, which is a number inside the flame. When a tile receives enough flame tokens to equal or exceed that limit, it will become scorched and turned over, which we'll cover the effects of that later on. Now, some of the tiles are also going to have a little orange dot underneath the flame, and that is going to mean that that tile will start the game on fire, and you'll add a number of flame tokens to it equal to 2 minus its scorch limit. So this tile will start the game with 2 flame tokens on it. Also, you'll notice that there's an icon of one of the characters on this tile. Each character is going to have their own special tile that if it is scorched, they are going to lose their special ability. So you're going to want to be very careful and not lose those tiles and get to those tiles to put out any fires that are on them. Finally, at the bottom of each of the tiles is going to be a bunch of different icons for when you're fighting fire on those tiles. You're going to roll the firefighting dice and try to match as many symbols as you can on those icons. The more symbols you match, the better you're going to fight the fire, and the more rewards and flame tokens you'll be able to remove from that tile, as you'll see later on in the video. For board setup, the first thing you're going to do is grab your stack of tiles, go ahead and shuffle them up, and then we're going to place them out. For your first couple games, it's recommended to use this honeycomb pattern, as you guys can see here, but in later games you can either create your own, or there's different combinations also that you can find on page 10. So you're going to start by placing out a middle tile, and then you're going to surround it by placing a tile around the center tile. And this will be done in a random order, so each game is going to be a little bit different. And you want to make sure that the symbols are always on the bottom of each tile as you place it around. Once you're done with that, then you can go ahead and place out all the starting flames for those tiles, as we talked about. Then you can place the 3 different vehicle tokens on the airport, shuffle up the different reward tiles and place them out in a random order where players will draw from them. Place out the starting firefighter dice. The fire cards that you've already built in the order that you've placed them in. And then finally have each player choose a starting role that they want to play as. So we're going to play a 3-player game. So we're going to start with the crew chief, the spotter, and we'll go with the swamper. Finally, you can place out the windsock pointing in the up direction, and each player can place their starting token in that space as well. From here, we'll select one player to be the starting player. So we're going to go ahead and start with the crew boss. And we're ready to begin the game. Hot Shots is played over an undefined number of rounds. During each round, each player will get to take a turn to try to put out fires on their space. The game is going to end when one of 2 things happens. The players are going to win if they're able to put out all the fires and have less than 8 tiles scorched. They are going to lose the game if 8 or more tiles are scorched or if the fire camp tile is scorched. So let's go ahead and start the game. So at the start of the game, again, like I said, you would choose one player to be the starting player. So I'm going to go ahead and select the crew boss. So during a player's turn, there's an order of play which they will follow, which you can see in the bottom left corner of their card, as you guys can see here. And they'll do this in order. So the first thing during a player's turn is that they can move up to 2 tiles in any direction that they choose. Now there are a couple guidelines to this. First is that you are not required to move. You can choose not to move at all, and you are not allowed to move through a tile that is on fire. Your movement will immediately end if you enter a tile that is on fire. You can leave a burning tile, so if you start the turn on a tile, then you can choose to leave that tile if it's on fire. You can move through fire breaks and scorched tiles, and there is no limit to the number of players that are on a tile. And in truth, most of the time it is helpful to have additional players on a tile as they will support you in your roles, as you guys will see later. So our crew boss here has a couple of options. He definitely wants to get into a tile to start fighting some fires. So he can either move down here, which is an important tile as it's one of our supporting characters tiles, and if that tile goes and gets scorched, then that player will lose their special ability, which is a very bad thing. So he can definitely head into there, or he can move up here and start working on this one, or he can move through this tile to get over to this tile to start working on that one. So he has plenty of options. So let's go ahead and start in this tile here. So he's going to move over here, and once he moves into a tile that's on fire, his movement will immediately end anyways. Now, the crew boss does also have a special ability which it says that one time on your turn you may move one other player one tile. And again, you can choose a player to do that with, and they must agree that it's okay. You can't just move them, and even if they don't want you to move them. So I'm going to go ahead and see if the Swamper wants to move into the tile with me to help me out here. So he agrees to it, so I'm going to move him in there, and that will help me out. From there, then we're going to move on to the second phase. After you finish moving, you can roll the dice to fight the fire on the tile you were on. If you end your move on a tile that is not burning, you can still roll the dice, but in this case, you're rolling for a fire break. If you are on the airbase tile, you can choose to use one of the remaining vehicle tokens that is on that tile, but if you do this, you cannot also choose to roll the firefighting dice. So let's move into actually rolling the dice. Now there's some rules for doing this. We're going to go over real quick, and then I'm going to show you guys an example. So first off, the dice do not need to be matched in any particular order. You can lock any dice of any symbol that you need for that tile. You can lock as many matching dice as you wish. After each roll, you must be able to lock at least one dice. As long as you do this, you may continue re-rolling the remaining dice as you wish. You may stop at any time and resolve your results to gain rewards, but there are no rewards for matching fewer than 3 dice. If successful, based on the number of matching dice you have, you will gain rewards, as listed on your card. If you roll and are unable to match at least one symbol on the combination, you fail to contain the fire and cause a blow-up. Set aside all the dice and cancel any locked dice. Add 1 flame token to the tile, which can cause the tile to scorch, and then you're going to end your fight the fire phase. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of this. We have our crew boss down here trying to fight this fire, so we're going to roll these dice. And we need 2 firefighters, a fire hose, a McCloud, or 2 McClouds, and a shovel. So we did really well. We rolled 4 matching symbols. We can choose to lock any or all of these dice if we want, and then continue re-rolling these dice, or we can choose to stop there. At this point, if we stop there, we have 4 matching symbols, which will allow us to remove 1 flame token. So we can go ahead and push our luck if we want to, but it is totally up to us. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm looking for one of the McClouds, so hopefully we'll roll one here. And we did. All right, so we can lock that one. And again, we have the choice. We can either re-roll this or stop here and resolve our effects. So let's go ahead and do that. We're not going to push our luck anymore. Let's go ahead and resolve that. So on our card, for matching 5 symbols, we're going to put out 2 flame tokens. So we'll remove the 2 flame tokens. And then we also can receive either 1 fire break or 1 reward. If we take a fire break, we have to use it immediately, and we must place it on one of the connecting sides of that tile. Or we can take 1 reward from the pile, and the rewards will grant us various abilities or skills that we can use one time during our turn. We can have up to 3 reward tokens on each character. So let's go ahead and do a fire break real quick. So we're going to go ahead and place the fire break on this tile to stop anything from getting onto this tile from that tile. From here, then the rolling turn is over. But let's go ahead and say, for example, that we didn't roll that last dice or matching symbol. Let's say we rolled these again. At this point, we would cancel any remaining symbols that we locked, so it would be a complete fail, and we would add a flame token to that tile. Now, if that pushes the tile into a scorching mode, then we would resolve the effects of that, which I'm going to cover in just a minute. Now, the other important thing that I want to talk about is support. And this is where the team is going to come into play big time. So with support, for each firefighter that is in your tile with you, you will receive 1 support. As well as there are some rescue tokens that will provide support. And if you're in a tile that's adjacent to the lake, you're also going to receive 1 support. And all these things are cumulative, so you can combine all of these and get a number of support. For each point of support, it's going to stop 1 blow up. So in our example up here, our crew boss, we said in the one example that he rolled this for his second time. And since he cannot choose to lock a dice, or he's unable to lock a dice, he would cause a blow up. But since we have one support in there, that would cancel that one blow up. So in that situation, we could choose again to stop and resolve our effects, or push our luck again and try to roll those dice again for another result. And this is true for each crew. So if we would have had a second crew member in there, then we would have had a second support, so he could choose to roll them again, and if he failed again, he would still be okay with that second crew member. After fighting a fire, success or fail, you're going to draw one fire card and resolve its effects. You can show the card and discuss your strategy with your fellow players. When resolving the fire card, you're going to place it face up in the discard pile. Players are not allowed to look through the discard pile. And if a player needs to draw a card from the fire deck and there are none, go ahead and shuffle up the discard pile to create a new deck. After resolving the card, your turn is over, and the next player, clockwise, will start their turn. So let's look at an example of some of the fire cards. So I'm going to take you guys through a number of different fire cards to show you guys some examples of how they work and what their effects are. So let's go ahead and start by drawing. So the first card we have is a number card that shows +2 on it. So what this means is that we're going to select one of the tiles that is currently burning of that number and add 2 fire tokens to that tile. So right now we have 2 tiles that are burning that are 4s, and we will have to add 2 tokens to one of those tiles. Whichever tile we choose, that will put it at its maximum limit or its scorch limit, so that tile will scorch. And I'm going to cover the effects of scorching in just a couple minutes. So the next card we're going to look at is a 2 flame card. What this means is that you're going to add 1 flame token to one of the tiles that is burning of each number. So right now we have 2 5 tiles that are burning, so we'll have to choose one of those tiles to add 1 flame token to it. And we have 2 4s, and so we're going to add 1 flame token to one of those. Now let's go ahead and say, for example, that both of our 4s had been put out, so they have no fires on them. In that situation, you're never going to add a flame token to a tile that is not currently burning. So if there are no tiles that match that number, then that is ignored. And if all the tiles on there, so if we had all of our 4s and 5s extinguished, then this card would have no effect. And so we would draw it and it would not be resolved. But that is a good thing. Later in the game, those cards can be handy if you have all those places put out. So the next card we have is a light breeze. So a light breeze is going to blow fire to adjacent tiles based on the windsock direction. And so we are going to add new fire to those tiles. And we're going to resolve this for all the tiles. So this tile will blow 1 space up, so this tile will be lit. This tile will start this tile on fire. This tile will blow onto this tile, which is already on fire, so we will not add any. And same with this one. And this one blows off the board, so it will not affect that as well. Now there's a couple things. If we would have had a fire break here, that would have stopped this tile from being scorched, as a light breeze does not go through fire breaks. And a light breeze does not add flames to an existingly burning one. So with this one blowing up, this one is already burning, so it will not add tokens to that. Our next card is a strong breeze. So this works exactly the same way as a light breeze, adding 1 flame to a non-burning tile, going in the direction of the windsock, except for it's going to bypass any fire breaks. So in the example earlier, if we had had a fire break here, this tile would blow past that fire break and still add a flame to that tile. The next card we have is a light breeze that adds flame tokens to our existing burning tiles as well as tiles that weren't burning. So in our earlier example, let's go ahead and go back. It would add a flame token here as it's going in that direction. This one would add a flame token here. And then we would also add flame tokens to tiles that are already burning. So this tile would blow up and add a flame token there. This tile would blow up and add a flame token here. And again, this one would blow off board, so it wouldn't add anything. And that works the same way with the strong breeze that adds these, except for it'll go past any fire breaks in the direction that needs to go. We have an ember tile, so it will start a fire or add to a fire that is already on that tile. So this one specifically talks about this tile. So if this tile is not burning, we would add a flame token to it. And if it is burning, we would add a flame token to it. And then we have the wind change tile. So when this card is drawn, we would change the wind to the direction showing on the card. So if we do this, it's going to go in this direction here. And then we would do a light breeze in that direction. And I find that it's easier to place the windsock on the edge of the way it's going instead of placing the windsock in the middle pointing in the direction. But whichever way works for you the best is the way I would recommend using. So again, in this situation, let's remove these other flames real quick, go back to where we were. We would resolve a light breeze, so now the flame is blowing in this direction, so it's not going to add any fires to the places that are already burning, but it's going to add a new fire here, because this one's blowing in this direction. This one's blowing here, so it'll add a flame there, and this one is blowing this way, so again, it's going to add a flame there. Now, again, a tile that has just been added will not continue on, so it won't continue burning and lighting these, as this one was just added recently. So, like I said, this one would add to this one, but this one would not chain reaction and light that one. So let's go ahead and talk about scorched tiles now. So anytime a tile has a number of flame tokens on it equal to or greater than its scorch limit, it will become scorched. So let's go ahead and say that during our last player's turn, the fire card added 2 flame tokens to this tile. At this point, this tile has 4 flame tokens on it, which is equal to its scorch limit. So this tile is going to become scorched. So when that happens, you're going to resolve any effects on that tile, as some of the tiles have special scorched effects, such as the propane tile or the mansion, and all these effects are going to be listed on page 11 of the rulebook. Otherwise, you're going to remove all of the flame tokens from that tile and flip it over to its scorched side. At this point, then you're going to add 1 flame token to one of the adjacent tiles that has the lowest scorch limit on it that is not blocked by a fire break. So in this situation, we would add it to this tile over here, which only has a scorch limit of 1, so that will cause a chain reaction, and this one will scorch as well, and we would follow the same process. But let's go ahead and say, for example, that both this tile here and this tile here had fire breaks on them. Then we would go to the next lowest tile, which is a 3. And we have 2 3-point tiles that could be chosen. In a case of a tie, then we would add it to the tile that has the least number of flame tokens. So it would be this tile. But let's go ahead and say that both of these tiles had flame tokens on them already. At this point, then it would be the player's choice on which tile would receive the next flame token. And it does not matter if a tile is currently burning or not. So in this situation, with this being a tie, and this one having the most flame tokens on it, we would add 1 to that. So a tile can have flame added to it whether it is currently burning or not. Now, there's a couple other things. The players can move through scorched tiles, and wind cannot spread fire through scorched tiles. So let's go ahead and say, for example, that this tile was on fire here, and we had a strong wind that was going to add fire in the direction of the windsock. This tile would not add a flame to this, and it cannot transfer through a scorched tile to add a flame to this tile. Now, the one other thing we need to talk about with scorched tiles is what happens when a player is on them. So let's go ahead and say, for example, we would resolve the scorch on that tile, and we happen to have some firefighters in this tile. Upon resolving the effects, remember we have to add 1 flame to one of the adjacent tiles that has the lowest scorch limit on it, which would be this tile here. At that point, then this tile would scorch as it has met its limit, so you would follow the regular effects, so the tile would be flipped, and it would spread a flame to the next adjacent tile of lowest number. But on top of that, since we had a couple of firefighters in there, they would remain in the scorched tile. And for each player that had a firefighter in there, they would lose 1 of their reward tokens if they had any, which they must discard. And then the player is going to lose 1 dice from the firefighting dice for each player that is in there. So in that situation, we would lose 2 fire dice that would be added to the base camp. And the only way that those dice can be recovered is if a player moves to the base camp and ends their turn on the base camp, in which case those dice are added back to the pool. Until those dice are added back to the pool, then no player can roll those dice. They must remain locked there, and all the players will have to work with are the remaining dice that they have. So in this case, it is very dangerous for firefighters to be on tiles when they get scorched, as it's really going to hamper your ability to fight fires until you can unlock those dice again. I'd like to go into a little bit more detail about the reward tokens now. So first off, all reward tokens are single-use tokens. Tokens cannot be played on the same turn they are acquired by successfully fighting a fire, and you can have a maximum of 3 tokens at any time. So if you would receive an additional token, you must immediately discard one of the tokens of your choice. You can play tokens only on your turn, and you can play as many tokens as you have, but they must be played before drawing the fire card. You can also play a token in place of a dice. So, for example, in a situation where you're rolling dice to match the symbols on a tile, if you don't roll any dice that match, and that would cause a blow up, you can choose to use one of your tokens if it meets the requirements, and that would count as 1 dice that you've locked for that turn and would prevent you from causing a blow up. Now, anytime on your turn that you are on the same tile with another player, you may take 1 token from that player with their permission. Tokens can only be taken on your turn and not given. The last thing I want to go over real quick is how each one of the 3 different vehicles works. So I'm going to go through and give you guys some examples of each one. So the first one we're going to look at is the helicopter. And keep in mind that each one of these vehicles is a single-use token, so when you use it, you must discard it. So we're going to use the helicopter first, and it can go anywhere on the board and take out 3 flame tokens on 1 space, except for spaces that specifically say that you cannot use it, which is like this power line space has a picture of no helicopter. So other than that, any space you can use to put the helicopter on to remove 3 flame tokens. And then after you resolve that, the player that used it will have to land in that space. All right, so then we're on to the airplane. So with the airplane, it's going to travel anywhere on the board in a straight line or a light curved line and put out 3 fires or 1 flame token in each one of the spaces that it goes over. So let's go ahead and say, for example, that these 3 spaces are on fire. So the plane can choose to pass over all 3 of these spaces and take 1 flame token from each of these places. And like I said, it can go either in a straight line, so across here, or a light curve, but it cannot do a sharp curve like that. And then once it does that, then you can either place your firefighter in the starting space that it started in or the space that it ended in. From there, then you would remove that token. And then finally, we have the rig. Now, again, the rig can go anywhere, start on any space, and wherever it starts, it's going to place fire breaks along 3 edges. So let's go ahead and say, for example, that the rig starts here. So we would place 1 here, and then it can choose to go either way. So we'll go down this way. And then again, it can choose to go that way. So then we can go here. Now, along any of the tiles that are affected, we can place the firefighter. So he can go in this tile or that tile, this tile or that tile, as these are the 4 tiles that were affected by the fire breaks. And again, once you're done, you would remove that vehicle from the board. Well, I hope you guys found that video helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this as well. Is this a game you guys are interested in or that you've played? I'd love to hear those thoughts either in the comment section below, or you can swing over to my Facebook or Twitter accounts and continue the conversation there. I'd love to talk with you guys and hear what you guys are playing or what you guys are interested in. And as always, if you guys have games that you're interested in me covering, please leave those in the comment section below, as I will look at that and potentially try to cover those games as well. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching my videos. I do appreciate the fact you guys take the time to watch my videos and to leave me comments on them. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.